So, hey guys, today we're going over a kind of ban list wish list, I guess, that one of you guys sent in, and today we're going to just take a look at it. Uh, try not to be too mean, I guess, if you just disagree. But uh, anyway, so we're starting from to 3 all the way to 0. So basically, cards that should be banned in this viewer's opinion. So, all right. With Sage with Eyes of Blue and Maiden of White, honestly, yeah, these cards just genuinely do not matter. They should just go back to 3. Like, this hit kind of moderately just annoying. So the thing that this affects most is just the grind game. And even that, does it affect it that much? I'm not really sure. It's just these hits in particular are not too consequential because you have several ideas to get to your Maiden and Sage with Eyes of Blue, and some you're not even necessarily using. So one idea would be like 1-for-1 for Maiden of White. That would be a potential idea if I could search 1-for-1. But all right. Of course, there's also like Puree Map to search Sage with Eyes of Blue. You have Bingo Machine to search these cards as well, which, you know, it all works out. And then we have Labyrinth Stovey Torby, and then we have Labyrinth Chandraglier. So these cards are not hit specifically because of Labyrinth, actually. They're hit because they had synergy with some really dumb cards that made the deck very, well, I guess, stupid, let's say. So if we add more copies of Chandraglier, Stovey Torby, the thing that we have to look out for, well, that we had to look out for mostly, was actually Reformapel 5 Rainbow. So the issue was mostly with the 5 Rainbow being a turn 0 floodgate that you either just happen to have the exact cards to deal with, or you probably just lose on the spot. So basically, there are 2 effects on 5 Rainbow. So first is if this is scaled in the pen zone, we have the effect of each player applies one of these effects based on the number of set cards in their spell and trap zones. If you have 0, all monsters you control cannot attack or activate their effects. So basically just Mystic Mine. And then if either player sets a spell trap on your field while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. And for whatever reason, this card is still legal. And I don't remember exactly every single tech card you would be able to play with the Labyrinth cards, but if we do Chandraglier or Stovey Torby, effect to send 5 Rainbow. So this is something you can just do, either going first or second, to then send the 5 Rainbow to floodgate your opponent out. And a bunch of decks were playing 5 Rainbow, and honestly, I think since 5 Rainbow is legitimately a card that does nothing but floodgate your opponent, just ban this card. Like, what does this do for Performapal? There are 0 Performapal players that actually play this. This is just strictly a floodgate that exists to floodgate people. So, yeah. The fact that Branded can also just search this, pretty disgusting, I'd say. And you would go like Brand Fusion, which can send any light monsters, send 5 Rainbow. And then when we would set like Albion or something, or off of the Albion effect, that would set the 5 Rainbow because of this effect right here, where if either player sets a spell trap, it will get placed in the pendulum zone. So yeah, that's part of the issue. And then I believe there were things to do with like rollback, which I don't think matter as much, but just the cards are just kind of annoying, really. So if we ban 5 Rainbow, sure, go back to 3 for both of these cards. That's okay. So now with Kashira Fenrir, hell no. So the issue with Fenrir is that it's just way too good for going first and second. This is basically just better P.u.n.k. And the issue with Fenrir being at 3 is that you can Fenrir add Fenrir. And yeah, we don't have to go too in-depth on this, but yeah, Fenrir can't even be semi-limited because of this. honestly, it should just stay at 1, just for the health of the game. Like, even in cash, it doesn't help you that much. For Fenrir to go back to 3, it's kind of whatever. I don't know who this really helps if we put Fenrir back to 3. So Fenrir is only a 2-card combo in cash, and it's only a 2-card combo with specific cards, which makes it feel like, I guess, pretty terrible. So if we have like Fenrir plus Theosis, we can go like Fenrir add Rise Heart, special summon Unicorn, grab Birth, and then that's combo. If we have Fenrir plus Birth, that is combo because you can banish the Unicorn and special summon it with Rise Heart, and then make a Rise Heart. So that just works, I guess. And then with Parallel Exceed here. Well, actually, wait, there's one deck specifically that would want to play Fenrir, I remember now. It would be Auroradon Turbo. That's it, because you can special Fenrir, add Rise Heart, normal summon Rise Heart, and then you aren't XYZ locked, and then you can go into what's his face? Galaxy Tomahawk, and then go into Auroradon from there. That was the deck. And then Parallel Exceed, I think it should just stay at 2. So yeah, it's obviously unplayable if Exceed goes to 1. Well, actually, no, it's still playable. It just becomes an extender, right? Yeah, that'd be like okay-ish. So the issue with Parallel Exceed is that I think it was too efficient when you were small worlding it away. But aside from that, this card's actually very degenerate. So as it happens, I was researching Parallel Exceed. I don't remember the exact details because I didn't even public this video, but it was before they hit Parallel Exceed that I recorded it, and I did a bit of research into what you could do with Parallel Exceed because it is just completely generic and doesn't lock you. So even if we're not considering Mathmech, this card is just genuinely pretty disgusting. And it's actually worse now that Ryzeal exists. So I don't know exactly when this list was made. I'm assuming, wait, I think Ryzeal Cross is in here. I guess this might be an oversight, but yeah, this is actually just Ryzeal combo now if you just open this and you have any way to make a link. So that wasn't even something that existed before. But yeah, Parallel Exceed, I don't think this card should be at 3. If you want to play it at 2, it's more inconsistent. So yeah, I think it's pretty acceptable to just have this card at 2. Lightning Storm, honestly, I'm just indifferent. It went back. Well, it was at 3 for a long ass time. And it would be helpful in current format to have Lightning Storm back at 3. So we can go like destroy all face-up monsters our opponent controls, and this could destroy like Apollosa and Firewall Dragon against Malice, and then we could destroy the back row cards for Ryzeal. So this would be pretty solid if we're going second specifically. Lightning Storm was always fine, but they just felt like hitting it because Tenpai, I guess. But you know what? There weren't even Link decks being played at the time, so it was like completely pointless to hit Lightning Storm. It accomplished nothing because you can just throw in like Heavy Storm or Harpy's Feather Duster if you needed more back row removal. Like literally, why? Why is this at 2? Just why? And then for Flandres and the Magnificent Map, this being at 1 I think is actually just fine. So the thing about map, aside from this being like an additional kind of extender starter type deal for Fluandries, this just causes chain blocking super hard to the point where there's just nothing you can really do if you're playing against Flandries. And even without the barrier statue of the Stormwinds, I believe, you still have Empen, which is technically a floodgate. So yeah, you know, if your opponent's monsters are in attack position, you cannot even activate their effects, and this even applies to like a towers-like monster like Blackwing Full Armor Master, for example. Pretty disgusting effect, and then if you're playing a Link deck, literally unplayable. But aside from that, still, yeah. you just can't really hand trap Flu if they have map, and it just feels like you get sacked, which is partially the reason why diameter was limited, I believe, right? Because diameter, if you use this to make Alimbertion, I believe, right? It has a Omni negate effect. So if they immediately do that on their turn, you just don't have a way to interact with your opponent anymore, which is just pretty crummy. And that could be like you could have a nib or something and you just wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Just, yeah, it's an Omni negate until the end of the turn. So pretty disgusting there. The runic cards, the reason they're all hit this badly is because of stun. So we can get back to this later, but honestly, I just don't really like the runic cards in Best of One, and I also just don't like the runic cards in general. So with runic destruction, going back to 3, this is like, honestly, this is pretty powerful actually, runic destruction. Being able to remove just, well, none of these cards are even hard, are they? Wait, they are hard once per turn, okay. You can only activate 1 runic destruction per turn. Target a spell trap your opponent controls destroyed, then banish the top 4 cards of your opponent's deck. Then we have Freezing Curses, Runic Slumber. So Slumber, honestly, this is probably the only one that could kind of go back to 3 at the moment. If we're just looking at this part of the list, I guess. Really delicious memory. This could have went back to 3. Like, this should never have went to 1 to begin with. Like, why? No one's even playing Pearly to begin with. Like, do you guys remember the Unlimited event? When did you see Pearly game played? I think it was just Tier Limit, no? Like, what? Okay. Yeah, surely. This is what will break Pearly. We just make it inconsistent, or we just make it consistent, I mean, to have access to Delicious Memory. Like, come on, really? Really? Bro, we have 3 copies of My Friend. We have just everything unhit except for Delicious Memory. Like, genuinely, what is this? It just makes it inconsistent to make plump? Like, really? Really? Okay, so yeah, back to the runic cards. These cards just have like too much consistency and they're just used for dumb things, I think. Even if we don't consider stun. So yeah, we have like going into Hugin or any of these guys, and these are just free bodies basically. So you can just drop down a free level 2 monster, 3, 4, and you can use them for synchro plays and other dumb things. So I just really dislike that, and then the game plan and how Runic plays, it's just not fun to play against. So a lot of the time, well, it's not all the time, but a lot of the time, the strategy to play against Runic is to just do absolutely nothing and wait for more cards before trying to just get through whatever Runic BS you have to deal with, like Runic combo, Runic stun, Runic whatever. Same game plan where you just wait, because the Runic cards require a target to kind of activate. And because we can't main deck like backer removal and stuff as easily in Master Duel, like Fountain, just removing this card is such an insane chore when you also have to deal with all of this monster base removal and stuff. So we have like Monster Negate, Pop Monster, that type of deal. So really rough. And then, all right, we're going to 2. The 2. So yeah, you already know how I feel about like just Runic in general. And it's already very difficult to out the single fountain. If you added a second fountain, bro, that's genuinely suffering. Considering I'm pretty sure you can't you add back? Yeah. Gary can put back fountain. Dispatter can actually also put back fountain. If you're playing a build that has access to Dispatter, if we banish fountain face down, for example, it's still recyclable. Like, it's genuinely just horrific, bro. Like, you also have Omega to put this back into the graveyard as well, so that you can grab it with Jerry later. Actually horrific. Rapier. Yeah, genuinely, I think Rapier. Why put Rapier at 2? Why stop at 2? Just put Rapier back to 3. Like, Zodiac is not an issue whatsoever anymore. Like, power level wise, it's just fine. Just Rapier to 3. Why not? This sends a Zodiac card from your deck to the graveyard. What does that effect even do? Genuinely, I'm not sure if there's a single good target for this. Like, I genuinely just don't remember. I think I looked at it before, and I think it was just fine, honestly. This could have went back to 3 like a long ass time ago, actually. And then an XYZ monster whose original type is Beast Warrior and has this card as XYZ material against this effect. Once per turn, you detach one XYZ material from this card. Special summon a Rapier from your hand or deck. Oh, I see. This is soft once per turn. Ah, so maybe to 2 makes more sense. But honestly, if you put 3 Zodiacs onto the field, like, sure, why not, right? And then what was this card again? Red Ball. What does this do? Add any Beast Warrior type monster that can be normal summon slash set. Huh. Could this card come back? What was this searching before? Rapier, I guess. If we search Rapier, that gives you like 4 monsters. You know, considering we have Ryziel and stuff, like, how bad can Zodiac even be if we gave them everything back and they were back to full power? It is the year 2025 and is somewhat soon going to be 2026. Like, I'm not very convinced that Zodiac would be able to keep up with everything in 2026. I think it might be just okay. Like, is it that problematic? Even then, I guess we could settle for Rapier to 2 after, if it is too much, but I don't think it will be. And then we have Tier Cash and Tier Limits Haveness. To this I say, no. Just why? So this, well, I mean, it's not as bad because we have some consistency hits for Tier Limit already, but with Haveness just feels like absolutely terrible play against. So let's assume I have like Ash Blossom on Haveness. That feels awful because Haveness will still remain in the hand and can be used again on the next turn. So how do I deal with Haveness actually? Yeah, you can't really unless you happen to be playing Bistral. So there you go. Because if mill 1 tier name, we can just banish it, right? If mill 2 tier names, then that's a problem. Because then we can go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, and then we don't have enough Bistrals to, well, 1 Bistral will not be enough to deal with this single Haveness. It's just RNG, which feels also terrible to deal with. Like, I just very much dislike the tier cards. And yeah, I don't think this is balanced at all because the thing that makes Tearlint broken compared to other decks, so like if we look at Ryziel or Malice, the one big difference is you have turn 0 plays. And yeah, this is just adding more turn 0 plays. So if we have Tier Cash and Haveness to 2, well, we're going to assume we always have a target for Tier Cash to banish. Then this would put your odds of opening these cards to 40% from 20%, doubling it. So it's almost a 50% chance that anytime you face off against a tier player, they will have an opportunity to play against you and just be able to play on your turn 0. And you know, this is without the Ishizu cards, which also had aspects of playing on turn 0, right? So you have like Herald of Orange Light send to trigger Kelbeck or send a Shuffler, and that could also end up protecting you from Called by the Grave, which is, yeah, just disgusting. And it could also be just an interruption if your deck needed certain cards in the graveyard. So for example, if you were playing Malice, normal summon Dormouse, link off Dormouse or whatever, when Dormouse gets into the graveyard at this point, then there is the idea of using Mudora to shuffle back the Dormouse. And that would be like Chainlink 1, March Hare, Chainlink 2, Mudora, shuffle back Dormouse. And then that's something you could just potentially do turn 1 now. which I absolutely hate the idea of this. So, no thanks to that. I mean, specifically the Shuzu cards are not being mentioned here, but yeah, hard to disagree with that one. And there were a few other turn 0 plays, like specifically Kelbeck. This card right here is also an interruption if it comes up. So yeah, absolutely hate this. And of course, if you are able to board break tier, like if you manage that miracle against their board, if they had these in hand, you'd be able to also just combo with these guys still on your opponent's turn after a board break. Not a big fan of this change at the moment, like maybe in the future when everything is closer to tier power level, but like right now, I don't think that's really a thing to go for here. And now to 1. Just unicorn to 1. But why? Just unicorn is like 1,000 times more important to cash than like Fenrir. Fenrir is actually a garbage useless card, and you know, cash is just turbo mega unplayable. Rainbow Bridge of Salvation to 1. Why? So this is the only card I've discussed with this viewer, and the logic behind this was that Jesse Cotton played this in like their worlds list with like a bunch of horror stuff, and this was played at 3. I mean, this wasn't actually going to matter that much. So the thing about this is tier actually would be, in that build specifically, you would be running 3 field spells, and even after you banned per Lorino, right, you were still able to run 3 field spells for a bit to make this card like kind of dumb efficient. And then you have like the Turtle Crystal Beast, which is an aqua monster that can be shuffled back if you mill it, which is just obnoxious synergy. So with the targets in mind for salvation, you have just a lot of them actually. And the ways you can get to salvation, there are a lot more ways than just hard opening the salvation. And this only affects like specifically 60 card tier piles. It doesn't affect 40 cards like at all. So it seems kind of like moot point to me, at least, to put this at 1. So with the field spells though, you have Wraithsoft, and the idea behind Wraithsoft pretty simple. So we could do with horse cards, we can send this, and this spots nobody's on the field. Then we can go unicorn, or not unicorn. We can go Wraithsoft adds Fenrir. Fenrir adds tier cash, and then tier cash effect to mill. And I don't remember the exact sequence for this, but yeah, it works, right? Or you can just have tier cash for later, and then do like normal summon Rhino Heart, and then if that gets interrupted, you can link off for, well, now it would be you would link off for Fiendsmith combo to try to get into like stuff like the zombie vampire and whatnot, which you can still do. So you still have loads of options for this, I guess, right? And of course, like the other target at the moment would be, I guess, Walls of the Imperial Tomb. And then for the short, the moment, or well, after Perlerino gets banned, I guess you just had Secret Village because you have 2 spellcasters, and you can link into Dahark if you really need a spellcaster. But you know, Imseti, Snow, both spellcasters. So yeah, see Secret Village. And then Triple Tactics Talents to 1. Yeah, I'm not sure about Triple Tactics Talents to 1 because Triple Tactics Talents is an okay strong card, and you know, I think that this right now is on the healthier side of things in terms of like hand traps and going second cards. This card is just fine. It has the quirk of you can only activate one triple tactics talent per turn. If you were to be running 3 copies or 2 copies, there are somewhat drawbacks to running at these amounts. And if you are playing triple tactics talents at 3, you can still be punished, right? So like talents, if we just look at the card, if we're playing a single player game, this card does absolutely nothing. So, you know, like normal summon a guy, special summon, yada yada, full combo. Triple tactics talents not activatable. It's just a dead card in hand. And then there's also the fact that you can still interact with your opponent despite them having talents. So just one idea, shifter in the draw phase. Talents does nothing. If you attempt to run over one of my monsters by battle, I will just remove them in the battle phase. Talents is not activatable here. And then we have as well the idea of going like imperm, impulse. The other Dominus card I can't remember the name of at the moment, purge. All of those play around the talents. So playing around talents is very much doable if you really put your mind to it. And it's not like that unreasonable to do so. Like if you were playing Malice, you could have 6 hand traps that just work fine under talents, right? Not a big deal. And then if you're going second and someone is dropping talents on you, they could just be playing Change of Heart instead, right? And it would be, you know, just a little bit worse in the sense that this is non-targeting take, but you know, that's about it. Doesn't do a whole lot. Like, it is, all of these effects are fairly strong, but I don't think they're strong enough to need to actually hit this card at all. That's just how I feel about it, but alright. Now let's go to 0. So Drone Lockbird, Maxi, big controversial on these. So Drone Lockbird, I think is just genuinely fine because you wouldn't have remembered literally every card in existence, like for all of these cards, and I guess you can technically add new cards to this list here, right? But you have missed something very important with this kind of like Banlist you want here, right? And that is Super Heavy Samurai, for example. Oh, right. No, normal summon Soul Piercer. Do we have an answer for normal summon Soul Piercer anymore? No, we do not. Super Heavy Samurai is kind of just unleashed now that you have Droll banned, just for example. And also, we still have the Mulcharmies, which sucks for certain decks. So, for example, with Unchained, you were using Droll to prevent your opponent from drawing off cards like Maxi and Fualos, which you would now no longer be able to do because you don't have Droll. So, yeah, it was pretty good for Unchained. Before even considering what your opponent was playing, you would want to just Droll yourself. And you would probably want to do this in Malice as well. So, big controversial on Droll and Lockbird. And also, Droll and Lockbird is actually being designed around. So, right now, Droll and Lockbird, I think, is hitting more so the older decks rather than the newer decks. So, it shouldn't be big of a deal anymore, honestly. Just for example, with yugioh, for example. When is the first point in time where we can actually Droll here, right? So we go normal summon D-Lotus effect, special summon Spirit sets, and then we can go ahead, flip over the Nightmare Pain effect to search. And at this point, this is the first point in time where you can Droll. And you are affected by the Droll here, but you still have combo. And there are a few other instances like this with like Centurion, Tenpai, with specifically Pydra being able to set the field spell and then perform a cert with said field spell. And then we also have, I guess, worth mentioning, Voiceless Voice, where we can place the barrier of the Voiceless Voice and then perform a search with this card. And then we could get hit by the droll here. And actually, here you might think this is where the combo ends, but actually no, because Saphira, the effect to add is actually optional. So you can send a ritual spell from your deck to the graveyard and also discard Saphira, and then you can add one light ritual monster, making this optional. So if you get trolled here, you can still use Saphira in hand to perform a ritual summon here. So that's kind of neat-ish, I guess. But also like Ash and Droll are kind of like terrible, specifically into this type of card because let's say you do Ash Barrier of the Voiceless Voice. Well, now you have to deal with this again the next turn. So assuming your opponent has like the same type of a hand trap ratio as you, perhaps they'll just hand trap you, and then your engine just stops working after a certain point. But they'll have Barrier of the Voiceless Voice on turn 3 still, and if you somehow manage to stop this on turn 3 and they just happen to draw into nothing, turn 5, turn 7, every single additional turn you'll have Barrier of the Voiceless Voice still. And yeah, you would only have one Droll and Lockbird or one Lush Blossom Joe Spring unless you hard opened another and another. And yeah, that would result in kind of a stalemate for a while. Maybe. Because actually your opponent is still drawing cards that might be able to do something, and they don't just have that one card. So yeah, pretty strong stuff. Deep Sea Minstrel. You can discard this card and one water monster look at your opponent's hand and banish one card from the hand face up until end phase. Like, I get the idea behind this. You just don't want your opponent like ripping your card so you can interact with them. But honestly, I think this card's probably just fine at the moment. Like, how much of a difference does this genuinely make versus this deck? I just am not fully educated enough to go through like what was the deck even called again? Mermail, I guess. So all of these cards, do they just care? Do they actually care at this point? Like, what hand traps work against this deck even? Like Droll, actually, right? So if we just hit Deep Sea Minstrel, like, what was this accomplish here? Is there any particular hand trap they should be worried about now? Since you're suggesting like ban Shifter, ban Drone Lock, Maxi, what are they afraid of here? Bua? Eh? Don't they summon from hand actually? Yeah, I think it's from hand, right? Not from deck. Like there's some that summon from deck, but I think the majority comes from hand. So you'd need to be playing like Perulia and then invest the one that's like suspect, super suspect to play the Mulcharmies. They're a lot worse. So if we were playing like TCG, don't really like talking about TCG when we're doing a Master Duel video, but if we're playing TCG and we are going second, we can just side in Mulcharmies. So a little bit different there, but in Master Duel, you have them in your deck when you're going first and going second, which makes Mulcharmies just worse in general to play. So yeah, there's that. And then, does this have any other effects? Send top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Target 1 level 4 or lower monster. Place it on top of the deck or the bottom. And that effect is nothing. It's literally just this effect, really. And in terms of hand rip effects, we still have plenty of others. I think, like, you must have been traumatized by something Mermail did to you, because I haven't seen Mermail in the past, like, who knows how long. So this might be more fine now. I don't know. We'll see. Whatever. All right, Chessy Cat. Yeah, I just don't really understand this idea of banning Chessy Cat. What? I mean, if we were Konami here, as you can see by the rarity, this says SR, and then if we go to the Malice cards, all of the other monsters are Ultra, 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 so this is the most likely card they were going to hit anyways. Seems just kind of pointless. This had the same energy as like semi-limit and then like limit Poplar or whatever they did. In the sense that it doesn't really do much to the deck overall. I guess it is annoying in the sense that you have one less body you can banish to just put on the field before even considering the draw effect. And honestly, this draw effect is just like fine in general. It's only annoying if they draw into, for the most part, way too many hand traps. But there are only so many hand traps you could possibly be running. But that's like a math equation that you must solve, honestly, which I haven't. So the odds of drawing like additional hand traps off of Chessy Cat, the odds of them all being different, how many are the same, etc., etc. Yeah, I haven't really done the calculations, so I'm not really sure how big of a deal the draw 2 is here. But for the most part, like drawing into engine doesn't matter because you have access to all of your engine regardless off of just the 1-card combo, so it shouldn't really matter. But this is one less Malice name to banish, so that might make link climbing a little bit harder. That's about it, really. This does affect Malice, though. I'm not really sure if you need to do this for Malice, necessarily. And then we have banning every single barrier statue. I mean, I don't know how I feel about this, honestly. It's just like, eh. So the issue with the barrier statues, specifically in Master Duel, they're more fine because, you know, it's not like you can really just side in a barrier statue. So if I'm going second, I'll just be able to run over the barrier statues easily, and you know I can just run over them by battle as well. It's not that big of a deal. They're kind of just whatever. Even with a flu, the wind barrier statue was actually kind of doable. So the issue with specifically the wind barrier statue, though, is because with Fluandries, you could have access to a Ryza, the Mega Monarch, to then tribute over your normal summon. So I think genuinely these other 5 are fine. And Stun, honestly, I think is just a really annoying deck, but it just incentivizes you to run like backer removal for the most part. It's kind of like whatever. And they did semi-solemn, which did matter a bit. It's just eh. Playing against Stun, not so fun. I don't know. They're not like very interactive games, but I mean, I feel like Stun legitimately just has a place in Master Duel to an extent. If we're think about it in these terms, let's see. With the stun cards, how would I put this into words here? They're absolutely terrible. All of these guys are completely dog water, I guess. If you're going second, going first, they're kind of fine, all right, even. But it's not unplayable by any means. So one idea you can have is to just set your cards, and that plays around Solemn Judgment, because then if you were to normal summon a guy that can beat over these barrier statues, they might have to just solemn it. But if you set it and they attack into it, they'll flip summon your monster effectively, bypassing solemn, allowing you to then change that monster to attack position and then run over like barrier statues or fossil dyna because they're small guys. Inspector Border being a larger guy, I think this is more justifiable to ban than these guys. But just in general, you actually do have a lot of outs to these guys, so you only have one normal summon per turn, so if you actually draw multiple barrier statues, they're actually dead cards. So if we just go off of the fact that like most decks could be, well, they should be. It depends on exactly like what the meta is and whatnot, but Infinite Impermanence, if you have 3 copies of this, there's a 30% chance you can just completely negate any barrier statue or even Inspector Border, because you can't really put multiple of these guys on the board unless you have specifically Time Tank Morganite. So if you do the calcs, it might actually not be that bad, surprisingly enough. It's genuinely not that terrible compared to specifically back row floodgates, at least. These ones are a lot more contestable, I think, than the monster floodgates because they're more outable or more possible to out. And then there's some people, of course, running probably imperm and then droplet, which means they have like a 50% chance to just have the out do all of these guys basically. So yeah, Fairy Tale Snow, I think this is fine. Like this card genuinely could go back to 3, honestly. Like what were you doing with multiple copies of Snow anyways? Like what difference does this make between 1 and 3? As long as it's legal, right? So the only thing kind of disgusting about Snow is that it is not hard once returned, but it is just like a Book of Moon effect in the graveyard, pretty much, and that's about it. The only time it would be more is if you were able to send Snow back into the graveyard, or it could be additional bodies if you have a lot of milk cards to summon Snow a few times, I guess. And then it's useful in particular FTKs. So something like a Primal Seed FTK, it'd be useful to have Snow to banish the cards you need banished as well, potentially, I guess. Otherwise, like, I think Snow is genuinely just, like, fine. Doesn't really super matter. Not a big deal. Shifter. Now, this card is already pretty fine at 1, honestly. It's just, like, a little bit sacky, but not nearly as bad as before with 3 Shifter, so genuinely, because they banned Gamma, basically, Gamma to 1 might as well be banned Gamma because you have, like, 1 driver, 1 Gamma, but that aside, Shifter. What counters do you have to Shifter? You have called by exactly, except you don't. Dimension Shifter on my turn, pass to you after I do whatever. Could have a full end board, half end board, no end board. Cool. You're under macro still. Actually disgusting. There was a point in time for sure though where Shifter felt like it really had a place in this game. I mean, the most notable one being like tier format, where like what was I supposed to do aside from Shifter? Like every other hand trap was honestly just pretty damn bad. And then there's also still Herald of Orange Light to counter Shifter. Like, bro, tier was definitely not okay. All right, like what? But yeah, Shifter. The main issue being the fact that you can use it on your own turn, and then even if you do use it on your opponent's turn, you just have like 2 of Called By to contest the Shifter. So yeah, Shifter pretty strong, but like it does genuinely have some downsides as well. I mean, this is like a fine card to ban. It doesn't really matter that much, but I would contest this a little bit more because you want Fissure and Macro Band as well. So I think in terms of cards, like I think Fissure is actually okay. Macro, like I think there's more argument to ban like a macro. So not a whole lot to say about that right now. Protos, I think Protos is actually okay right now, genuinely. There was a point in time where like every single good deck was essentially just a dark deck though. So yeah, that was terrible. And you also do have the idea of using that 1 rank for the Flame Banshee to access the Arch Nemesis Protoss now, which adds 1 more attribute Protoss can hit. But you know, Protoss only hits 2 attributes. It's genuinely not that big of a deal. Doesn't even hit them both at once, and you do need information on what your opponent's playing, which makes Protoss like just genuinely worse in best of 1. It's surprisingly okay. Didn't think I'd say that about Protoss, but I mean, if we're just going by right now, there's not that much that Protoss is doing for you. And then if we're looking at cards that actually floodgate, there are ones that are actually much worse than Protoss actually. So if you have a Hieratic Seal, yeah, this is spelled right. No? Okay. So Hieratic Seal. We have Hieratic Seal here. We can special summon 2 different disgusting floodgates off of this. So first, we have Sloth. special summon Sloth. Neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck except for Amorphage monsters. And I'll give you a good hint on this one. There are no extra deck Amorphage monsters, so they're only main deck Amorphage Pendulum monsters that you would have to put into extra deck and Pendulum summon in order to perform this action. And I'm pretty sure 99% of players aren't actually playing Amorphage, and even if you were, Amorphage kinda sucks, so yeah, whatever. And then after this, you know, this is essentially kind of like Scythe at home, Ghetto Scythe, whatever. Okay, and then we have also Wiki Meru Doom, or not Doom, wrong one. Wiki Meru Vego, right? Vego. How do you even spell this? Did I spell this that wrong? Well, whatever. Neither player can special summon light or dark monsters, so this is just, in terms of being like a floodgate, this is worse than Protoss. It just has less protection than Protoss, but I mean, overall you're floodgating more. And then Quakey Mirror Doom also exists, just throwing that out there. And then we have a bunch of just random floodgates you probably haven't thought of, but they're still in the game. And they're hella obnoxious. So we have like our Sink Stone, for example. Reformable 5 Rainbow. We have Lose 1 Turn, etc., etc. There's like a bajillion hidden floodgates and ideas you probably don't know of because they're just not that efficient, or there's no incentive to play them. But yeah, Lose 1 Turn is also a floodgate. That one would be played with Flu, and a lot of Flu players are playing that, and it is more annoying than Harpy's Featherstorm, honestly. Harpy's Featherstorm, I think, is actually worse than Lose 1 Turn because you still require a Windwing Beast monster. So it's just whatever, honestly. And then with Rizal Cross, I think this card is just like a bit overtuned, honestly. So let me see that real quick. Doesn't this work in the damage step? Like, what the hell is this? Okay, then. Anyway. It's mainly just this monster negate effect, but this card really does bring Ryzeal together. So, not really sure if Ryzeal Cross is the right hit here. Honestly, I think just a consistency hit would be enough for Ryzeal, because Ryzeal's actually surprisingly inconsistent versus like Malice, because with Malice you have like Gold Sark, Malice Underground, or like starter slash extenders. So with those cards you have an additional 5, and then you have like 6 names, putting you at 11 1-card starters or something like that. Whereas with Ryzeal, if we look at these cards, if you are not playing the Tachyon cards or whatever they're called, the mass starters you have is going to be worse. You have to be playing both cards to add 6 copies to just match the consistency Malice has with worse starter extenders. Basically, you have like Bonfire, so that's 3, 6, 9, and then, yeah, actually, but with the Tachyon cards, that would put you at 12. And then if we play the card that searches that card, that'd be an additional 3 here, putting us at like 15. I think that it might be overkill to run that many, but yeah, it's whatever. These decks are kind of like whatever. The most notable thing about like Ryzeal and Malice that I noticed is they're going second just sucks. That's about it. In terms of hand traps, like if your hand traps can do it, then you're fine. But you have a terrible matchup into aggro deck, so like floodgate decks kind of like stun actually should completely rail and bend over any Ryzeal or Malice list, assuming you get to go first. That is like the best matchup you could have here as the opposing player. So yeah, no hand traps working, no triple tactics working because they're back row, right? So that would work very efficiently, I guess. So yeah, moving on. Dimensional Fissure, I think this card is genuinely okay. It's just like fine. It's on the verge of not being okay, but you know, it's not nearly as bad as Deck Lockdown. This card, completely toxic. You know, Colossus was like a ban card for a long time. And this is even worse than Colossus, bro. Like, it's even easier to activate and resolve than Colossus. And going first or second, it still has niche uses. Going second, but going first, I mean, try playing under these conditions, right? There are very few decks that can play under these conditions. And even Malice, actually, it turns out I missed something with Malice, and you actually are affected by deck lockdown. You're just not like completely unable to play. So yeah, just completely brutal this card. And of course, you can activate this, and same deal with Fissure technically, but Fissure I think is not as bad. But with deck lockdown and how this works, there's so many aspects to this card specifically that make it more disgusting. So let's say I do normal summon a card, I get hand trip, I activate deck lockdown. The first player that gets to play not under deck lockdown, it's me, the activating player. That's disgusting. If I set up a full end word, then drop deck lockdown, you're not able to remove deck lockdown. You can't affect my deck. You can't play. You can't do anything. You're just screwed, basically, and that's deck lockdown for you. And then called by. Well, with called by banned, you would be able to resolve like any hand trap you wanted, pretty much, unless the deck just can deal with whatever hand trap it is. And I think this actually is bad, just in general. Just banning called by, a bad idea in my opinion. So there are ideas with called by, like a lot of ideas actually. So first off, called by is not the only option you have. You also have the idea of instead of playing called by, you can play prohibition, and same thing applies to like crossout. This requires information or just your deck to only lose to a specific hand trap, right? So let's say in this case, Drone Lockbird is a card that absolutely will obliterate my deck, and I have no way to deal with this. Prohibition, declare Drone Lockbird. Drone Lockbird is a trigger, essentially, right? Or I could even do Ash Blossom Joe Spring if that card was what mattered. Prohibition, declare this, and then I'm just completely fine, chilling. I go full combo, and you probably lose. If you have more information, though, technically you can also Prohibition key cards from your opponent so they cannot be activated and kind of like just screw them, I guess. So, for example, if I'm against Fiendsmith, I will just declare Requiem. No Link 1 for you. And that's very disgusting. We can go Lacrima, declare Engraver, whatever. So, yeah. Just banning called by, it's probably not enough of a commitment unless you maybe intend to also hit Prohibition. But, yeah, whatever. Crossout Designator, I think. This card has been like just degenerate and sacky for quite a while. So the most disgusting thing about Crossout Designator is it oppresses the going second player. That's about it. That's all this card really does, in my opinion. So yeah, the absolute most obnoxious thing is that when Crossout Designator was at 3, you were crossing out like every hand trap with Crossout Designator, but also like you could play around that by playing like more niche hand traps that you think your opponent might not be running, like for example Ghost Marner, but then you're just running a bunch of like one of hand traps to like kind of play that sometimes. It's just like kind of a whole mess. But then even then, if you're not doing that with Crossout, if we're playing a same card, like if I'm playing Fogblade and you're playing Fogblade, you can banish Fogblade, and then Fogblade won't resolve for your opponent in this case. And there are a bunch of like dumb situations with Crossout, really. So like, for example, let's say we're playing Sprite Mirror, and then I just have Crossout on Sprite Blue. Okay, I guess I can't do anything with that. And I guess Sprite isn't as bad because inherent summons, right? So let's say we're playing the Sword Soul Mirror, actually. Cross out on Moyi. Then now you've wasted your starter, yada yada. Suffer, basically, right? Call by the Grave. Going back to this. I guess because this is able to be used going second and going first, like it's a little bit stronger. But I mean, you genuinely do need cards like that in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And there are cards like they ban Lancia, for example, but if you ban Cult Eye, there are actually a surprising number of cards in the graveyard that you can't really deal with anymore without the Cult Eye. And yeah, just having some removal generically that hits the back, or not back row, hits the graveyard, I think is useful to have in the game. Different Dimension Ground. This turn, any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead. This card is genuinely just whatever. It's annoying when it does hit your deck, but I mean, it's just significantly worse than Fissure, Macro, or Shifter. The only deck that really abuses like these two cards in particular, the Barrier and also different Dimension Ground, would just be Labyrinth. And they have access to other floodgates as well anyways, like 5 Rainbow, for example. So, not that big of a deal. One of the builds I remember seeing when we still had 5 Rainbow to 3, and even after 5 Rainbow was put to 1, you were playing like branded Labyrinth just to send the 5 Rainbow. Like, yeah, it's some pretty nasty stuff. And then we have Harpy's Featherstorm. I mean, this card's only fine because there's like literally no wind deck that actually uses this well, and you can't really search this either. It's like genuinely just fine, just whatever, just okay, alright, whatever. And they're actually just better floodgates you could be running anyway, so it's surprisingly just meh right now. Anti-spell. This card is actually fine. Secret Village is not, though. Don't get me wrong here, but yeah. Anti-spell actually has counterplay. It's called Play Twin Twisters or Cosmic Cyclone. Yeah, that's it. If this card was actually an issue. Also, you know, of course, with every like floodgate, so like every card here, these are all terrible cards. Going second, they're fine. Like going first, actually, up to this point, even all of these cards are actually terrible. So it's mostly like a Master Duel format type issue where, you know, if you're going second with Harpy's Featherstorm, what realistically are you going to do? Are you even going to have a monster by the end of your own turn? Like, not clear. And even if you did, my stuff will still be not negated the turn after. So this might stall at best, in my opinion, with this card. With Rivalry of Warlords, Tikaboo, and Gozen, though, these cards can also be board removal type deal. So, you know, like Chain 1, Rivalry, Chain 2, Skill Drain. And if you had like a Baron in these situations, you wouldn't even negate the Rivalry because you were being threatened by a potential Skill Drain negating your Baron. And you were better off just keeping just the Baron versus allowing Skill Drain to resolve. And this was notable during like the Eldlik Floodgate format. That was a terrible one, where we also had like Vanities and stuff. Imperial Order. Oh yeah, they added animations, now that I think about it, to like Imperial Order. Despite banning it like literally a week after they added the animation. Actually, crazy work there. But yeah. Macrocosmos. I think this has a different usage than Fissure a little bit, but you can use this kinda in the same way as Deck Lockdown, so kinda justifiable in that way. But sometimes like you just need a macro, I guess. So, macro straight up banned. I don't know about straight up banned, but like macro to 1 maybe. But even if you do ban macro, there's still a bajillion like ways to access macro. So even without like looking at Rise Art, activate a hero lives, Shadow Mist effect, add mass change effect, make Dark Law. There you go. Now my opponent is specifically under macro. I am not. Did not even require a normal summon, just straight up 1-card combo into it. There's that idea. Normal summon Banisher of Radiance, I think. So, whatever that card's name is. There are 2 of these fellas. Normal summon one of the Banishers, boom, macro effect. No deck can really abuse that line in particular right now, but you know, that's a thing. Honestly, like at this point, instead of like banning Troll, I'd rather just see like Nibiru banned almost. That card, much more impactful, game changing. I don't know. It does like hold some stuff in check, so you know, same deal with Droll. Droll's not even useful in every situation. Kind of like iffy on certain hand traps here. Maxi, I mean, it's just been contested since like forever. But I'll just throw this out there, you know. The player being favored when Maxi is resolving is actually the player not resolving the Maxi in this interaction. So your odds of opening the Maxi, in this case, we'll go with the current number, 20% chance to open Maxi approximately, right? And then if we run, we'll go with 6 cards, 3 Ash, 2 Called By, 1 Crossout, 60% chance we have any of those. So around a 2 in 3 chance that you will not resolve Maxi, 1 in 3 that you do. So it's doing nothing but trading 1 for 1. In well, 60% of the time you do have Maxi, right? So not that insane. And then there's like some other math that you can do regarding this, but whatever. In terms of like these floodgates though, I don't know how to feel about these, because floodgates actually do have a benefit in the game. It's like more niche, but the idea behind floodgates, there is an idea where if you'd get hand trapped, right, you can fall back on or just use these floodgates, which is kind of interesting because this punishes your opponent for not having board breakers and playing just way too many hand traps. So for example, like let's assume Maxi resolves, right? Activate Maxi, you Ash me, whatever, you Imper me as well, then I can still fall back on like a rivalry or something like that. And it may or may not work, it's just RNG. The issue with the floodgates, I think the biggest one is when you put all of them together and you end up with like stun. That's probably the most problematic thing about all of these cards together. I think that this is part of the reason why you want to put the runic cards back, but the runic cards I think are just toxic regardless, and you're also still missing some floodgates, like 5 rainbow, which was also usable. So you could send 5 rainbow, set the field spell, and then you can activate the field spell, and that would prevent 5 rainbow from negating yourself if that actually mattered. If it didn't matter, you didn't even have to do that. But yeah, 5 rainbow. Wow, why is that card still legal? Actually crazy. But yeah. These cards are actually still something you could contest, surprisingly enough, if they should be banned or not. I don't think the answer is like super clear, for me at least, because I haven't done like any math regarding this. If I had math to back up like um, my opinions, like which I don't have very strong ones honestly, then maybe I'd have like a better answer for these lucky cards, just in particular. But yeah. The most jank thing, of course, being if going second, these cards still take a turn to activate. So the soonest they can activate is turn 3. And then if there is back row removal, you can remove these cards before they even have an opportunity to activate. If going first, then they're just very effective against hand traps. And this punishes your opponent for playing, well, essentially just too many hand traps, I guess. And board breakers are still fairly effective. So we have like ideas of droplet on like barrier statues, imperm on barrier statues, whatever, right? The main thing that boosts stun up right now, I think, is just like draw power. So genuinely, the biggest reason I don't think Pot of Greed can come back is because of like control decks. Because cards like Extrav like genuinely. Well, not so much pros, because pros is like 10 times more disgusting than extrav. But yeah, the idea of pot of extravagance. I think pot. This card might even be ban worthy just because it'd be a hit to specifically like back row decks and stuff. But yeah, with these decks specifically, I guess, right? You're just drawing into more cards and simplifying the game state and protecting your stuff with draw power, which is why like the Mize got banned and why Extrav was so heavily hit. I think they were hit mostly because of stun and not control, but control type decks benefit off of just raw draw power more than combo decks, surprisingly enough, because the consistency on those decks are just a lot higher. So with stun, I guess you're not really seeing your combo per se because you don't have consistency cards to an extent. So the way you circumvent that is just by playing so many floodgates that you're basically guaranteed to see one, versus how with like combo you still are not playing that many combo pieces or engine to get you to this point, unless you're maybe playing an FTK where you have to play enough starters that you're guaranteed a starter. So in that case, you'd be running like 36 starters to guarantee you see at least one. And that's how you kind of have to play stun, I guess, right? So could get into that more in another video, I guess. But yeah, it's not actually that clear cut and dry. But in terms of hits that I think are like not super contestable, and I think pretty fine, I guess, like crossout. It could stay at one, or you could just ban crossout. Like, I think that's fine per se. Deck lockdown. I've been thinking for a while that this card should just be banned. Honestly, like this card. Why? This is just way a jillion times more splashable than like a Colossus, and it has a stronger effect. Why is this legal? This is like so free to activate. What is the reason behind this? No idea here. And then we have cards here. Blue Eyes cards, they're like fine. We can put them back. We don't really need the consistency hits on those. And honestly, like with the Snake Eye cards, you could take a good amount of those off. Again, like, why are those still hit? Like, come on, man. Uh, yep, sure, whatever. Then with this, get rep here, just fine. This, none of these hits actually really accomplish anything, in my opinion. It's kind of whatever. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.